The other day, I read that Gen Z is drinking less alcohol than previous generations, and immediately I wanted to know what this might be doing for Gen Z's finances. What's changing in the culture, and is drinking less going to lead to more wealth for Gen Z? Sobriety's increasing popularity was especially interesting to me because I myself am sober, and not in a I used to drink and now I've stopped way, but in a I have literally never had a full serving of alcohol before. And as someone who doesn't drink, it has always amazed me how expensive drinks are at restaurants or bars. Like $10 for a margarita? Insane. I could get an entire Godiva chocolate cheesecake for that and it'll last me days. I'll just say the battle between alcohol and one's bank account is real, but so is the Cheesecake Factory versus one's bank account. Very real. Anyways, before I dive into whether Gen Z's trend of cutting down on drinks could potentially lead them to getting rich, and since I'm someone who's never even finished a beer before, I figured it'd be helpful to figure out how much people are spending on alcohol. So of course, I went to the most trustworthy source on the internet, Reddit. This Redditor posed the question of how much do you spend on alcohol per month and admitted to spending around $150 a month. And the responses range from $400 a month for this couple to some smaller ones like $30 a month and even a handful of $0 spenders. Other threads showed basically the same, though there were a few outliers that admitted to being alcoholics and those costs were understandably much higher. Beyond Reddit, a 2020 survey referenced by USA Today claims millennials specifically spend about $300 a month on alcohol, with dining out being a huge contributor to that. Meanwhile, alcohol.org had this crazy interesting chart that broke down US cities and the average drinks per week consumed in that city, the average cost of beer there at both a supermarket and a bar, and then calculated what the cost of drinking was for 1 year, 1 decade, and a lifetime. Like honestly, I saw that chart and was like, okay, I guess I don't need to make this video anymore. This kind of covered it. Because based on this chart, you can know that if you live in, say, Charlotte, North Carolina, and you don't drink alcohol your whole life, over your lifetime, on average, you're gonna save $103,000. Which, like, I knew going into this video's research that there was gonna be a lot of money saved, but I wasn't really expecting 6 figures. That's a lot of money. And that actually doesn't even cover it all because there's an opportunity cost that is missing here. And there are more expenses that tend to go along with drinking beyond the cost of the drink itself. I'll get to both of those in a sec. So, alcohol.org, your chart doesn't have everything in it because I'm going to get to it and I probably shouldn't bash you because you're just trying to help people with their addiction and I appreciate your chart. Okay, moving on. But anyways, based on alcohol.org's chart, on the lower end spend, you have a city like Birmingham, Alabama, where the monthly spend on alcohol is about $90. And on the upper spend end, we have a city like New York City, where the average monthly spend on alcohol is about $170. Both still a lot lower than that $300 a month millennial survey I mentioned earlier, but then again, millennials did pioneer alcohol meme culture. I mean, don't forget, it's wine o'clock somewhere. And I drink beer because I can't drink bacon. Am I right? Am I right? 5 months, guys. I am technically a millennial by 5 months, so this is my culture. But let's move on to the generation I'd rather categorize myself as, which is Gen Z. You might have seen one of many headlines claiming that Gen Z is the sober, curious generation, and experts have a few theories on why this might be happening. The most prominent theory is information overload. Because of the internet, Gen Z has grown up with an overwhelming amount of information on the negative effects of alcohol, which has led them to be more wary of alcohol. And honestly, with everyone having a camera in their hands these days, I feel like Gen Z just doesn't want to become the next drunken viral TikTok. It's like this collective fear of becoming a meme, you know? Another popular theory is that the emergence of health and well-being culture has caused a decline in drinking amongst young people. Yoga, green smoothies, gratitude journaling, they're in, rock and roll lifestyle, bunch of hangovers, not as much. And the last popular theory I'll mention is that unstructured social time is down in Gen Z versus previous generations, which has led to a decline in risky behaviors in young people across the board, be it drinking, smoking, or sex. Some of that's due to more involved parents growing up, but also some of it has to do with the way that socialization has changed in the age of the internet, where before you might meet up in a bar with friends, now you can easily meet up in Discord or Zoom, or just send memes to your friends throughout the day. Whatever the reason, Gen Z seems to be drinking alcohol less. As Desert News writes, a 2019 study found that, quote, 16 to 25-year-olds were more likely to be sober than people above the age of 25. They found that 15% of people in this age range had a firm stance of not drinking alcohol, with 26% of them not drinking any amount compared to older generations. On top of that, the number of Americans who are college-aged who don't drink any alcohol has gone from 20% to 28% over the past decade. Finally, guys, the impact of the DARE program is rearing its head, even if it did sound like it was daring kids to do drugs. Okay, so now that we have a sense of the cost of drinking and why Gen Z is drinking less, let's talk about why any of this matters. Now, since this is a financial education channel, the why this matters is going to be through a financial lens, but obviously there are a lot of other reasons, like mental health, for example, why drinking less might be really valuable. But for today, let's focus on that sweet, sweet money. First, we have the amount that you're saving by just not buying a drink itself. That's what we covered earlier in that alcohol.org chart. But let's bring in that missed opportunity cost that I mentioned from before. We'll use me as an example, plus my favorite financial tool ever, the compound interest calculator. Going back to the Charlotte, North Carolina example, which is a city similar to the cost of living of the one I live in, the alcohol.org chart has the yearly spend on alcohol in Charlotte being $1,821.30. Putting that into a compound interest calculator, we'll start with $0, add in the $1,821.30 a year, calculated over 56.8 years, which is the number of years between 21 and Charlotte's average life expectancy of 77.8, and we'll make the interest rate 10%, which is around the historical average of the S&P 500. Do that, and you have, drumroll please, $4,048,772.66. I know, it's insane. But as Albert Einstein once said, quote, compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. One of the most important things that I want people to get out of my videos is just to understand the unbelievable power of compound interest and why it is so important to invest, especially when you're younger. So hopefully that calculation just drives that point home. And look, I can already feel the little fingers stampedes as they comment something on this part of the video, so let me just mention a few details before that. One, if I'm gonna die at 77, then what's the point of the money? I can't use it when I'm dead. 100%. I agree with you. We can't take money wherever we're going next. And even though there are lots of people who live above 77 years old, let's say for hypothetical sake that you cash it out at 65 years old, which is the typical retirement age. That still leaves you with $1,182,585.06. Not 4 million, but still a nice chunk of change. The other argument that I am sure I'm going to get is that estimating a 10% annual interest rate is ridiculous and unrealistic, and I get that because when I personally do my retirement forecasting, I do a more conservative 8% interest rate, but 10% didn't come out of my butt, you know? It is genuinely the historical average of the S&P 500 since its inception in 1957. So to be clear, it is not a number that is just untethered from reality. By the way, quick definition, the S&P 500 is basically this group of stocks. It's the 500 largest stocks in the US that you can invest into. So instead of picking individual stocks to buy, like one Tesla stock and one Apple stock, which is called stock picking, you go into the S&P 500 or something like a low-cost index fund, and that allows you to diversify your portfolio and have a little bit of a bunch of companies. This kind of investing with low-cost index funds is personally my favorite kind of investing because of how it reduces your risk and how it is statistically so much better than stock picking. Like, don't let the financial gurus and Wall Street bets guys say that stock picking is the way to go because it is just statistically not as successful. But anyways, back to that argument of the interest rate, let's go for a more conservative hypothetical of 8%. Even with that, you end up with $1,770,173.42. Not bad. And the last argument I'm sure someone out there is going to say is, what is the point of saving and investing all this anyways? Society could collapse in a few decades. Who knows if I'll even be alive by then? And to that, I'd say you might like my Is Existential Dread Ruining Personal Finance video, where I break down that mindset and why it's not really helpful for anyone, especially yourself. So now we know potentially millions of dollars could be generated in Gen Z's lifetime by not drinking. And that's not even including the additional costs that surround the act of drinking, which this fun graphic kind of gives a little breakdown of. Things like Uber and drunk shopping. All of those are costs that tend to go with drinking. Fun fact about drunk shopping, by the way, Finder.com did a survey recently and found that 1 in 6 Americans shop while under the influence, spending about $309 each, which would equal about $14 billion in the last year spent on drunk shopping alone. So we're talking lots of money potentially saved. And personally, I think this is a really cool opportunity for Gen Z, or really anyone who is sober curious to channel money that would have gone into alcohol and have it go instead to your financial future. There's this almost lovely poetry of it all where it's like the tides could turn from this short-term, arguably destructive decision making into something that allows people to build real wealth for themselves, their families, and their communities for decades. I'm definitely biased in my thinking as someone who doesn't drink, but I just think it's really cool to see that Gen Z is questioning this normalization of alcohol moving forward, because decades of advertisements, honestly probably even longer than that, have convinced us that alcohol is an intrinsic part of socializing. Like, it's what you need to have fun and to relax. And personally, I just think that's marketing bull. Like, you can have really fun, amazing, memorable experiences without alcohol. It's not essential. And I promise I'm not here to just like preach the sober lifestyle and try to get people to convert, but more just to raise the question of what is the role of alcohol in your life and in your finances. Maybe after this video, you decide that you want to drink a little bit less or stop altogether. Or maybe you decide you want to drink in a little bit more versus out at a bar or a restaurant, or maybe nothing changes at all. And that is totally fine. Like, personal finance is personal. It is all your journey, your decisions, and what works best for you. Ultimately, it's up to all of us to figure out our trade-offs when it comes to any way that we spend our money, whether it's clothing or travel or drinking or food or saving or investing. My goal with these videos is always to raise questions about how we're navigating the world of money and media, while also hopefully sneaking in a little bit of financial education. This is where I'll end today's video, but if you want to see another video essay of mine on vices, you might like to see the toxic normalization of online gambling, where I talk about how new media is creating a whole generation of addicts. If you like this video and want to see more, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and make sure to like this video to please our algorithm overlords. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.